Bankers and entrepreneurs really don't get along much.
Yeah.
You know, you guys get your interest rates.
I'm glad you're in shape for this, because you're going to need to be in shape for this fight. You know, we're supposed to be the fighters. We're supposed to be the ones in there.
Mm-hmm.
But when I went home and I had to tell my kids and my wife, that was very difficult to do. And they all just circled around me and just hugged me. And that's what I told them. It was cancer. And I'll never forget what she said. No matter what, we'll get through it. That's what she said to me right here. You know, because we're all worried about, you know, at the end of the day, it's just, you know, what is this person going to think of me? How are they going to remember me? Those kinds of things. But if they remember me as a good loving guy, mm-hmm. I'm okay.
I'm gonna start right in. John, I haven't seen you in a while. Okay, true. I haven't seen. We've been friends. You know, from the banking industry.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Bankers and entrepreneurs really don't get along much.
Yeah.
You know, you guys get your interest rates. We try to get it lower. So we don't. But I've always respected you and knew you were always working for the customer at that point. And we kind of lost contact. You were telling me before we got on, 2001, where you were still at M&T.
Yeah,
I believe it was, and here we are at 2024, the end of the year.
Yeah.
So what have you been up to? And I'm going to say that because I want you to lead into your story here.
Oh, right. Well, that's a good segue then. No, great. I since then, you know, I went around in banking. There's no putting it out. There's no running from it. I bettered myself in banking each time I went.
Did you enjoy banking?
Did I enjoy banking? For a time I did. I have to say, banking was a great profession. It was a great profession, but I'm you know, strangely enough, I'm a blue collar banker, as you just said. I prefer to do things for the customers.
Right.
You know, that's where, you know, where that's what made me a little bit differently, is because I was a good advocate for my clients and a good advocate for.
And that could be the disconnect between the banking and, you know, there could be a disconnect.
Absolutely, because they're looking for margins and they're looking for all the profitability, all that. Not to fault them. They have stockholders to answer to, all that stuff. It's great. So anyway, I did a couple of rounds with a bunch of things. As you know, in banking, got up to vice president commercial lending, and decided, you know, I was going to do something else. You know, it was after, I don't know, a bunch of years, I got into insurance for a couple of years, and it was during that time I was kind of heavy. As I mentioned to you before, I was 250, 260, not feeling myself. Got myself said, hey, this is probably not healthy. Let's get yourself in shape. Mm-hmm. So I did. Lost a bunch of weight. Got myself down to about 200, a little less than 200 pounds. Played basketball at the Y a couple times a week. Did some running, did some things. Prepared myself for what I didn't know I was preparing myself for. And then a year later, went to see the doctor, and I got a diagnosis, you know, and he said to me at some point, he said, I'm glad you're in shape for this, because you're going to need to be in shape for this fight. You know, at some point he said, it was good you lost the weight. And I had no idea I was losing for that, but that's
Were you losing it from the diagnosis?
No, not at all. Not at all. It was because it was a steady decrease over, it wasn't, you know, kind of, in a small time frame. It was over a period of 14 months or so.
Okay.
That I've lost that weight. So, and I was actively trying to lose that weight with diet and exercise. And they all knew it. My doctor at the time, Mark Gilfus, he knew it. And so he was great. He was great with it.
So did you, okay. So you're wanting to lose weight just to be for the health reasons why. And before I get into that a little bit, were you an athlete in school?
No, I played a little basketball, but I really wouldn't call myself an athlete.
Okay,
more of a politician, George.
Right. You got strike two, John. Strike two, banker, politician. But why do I say that is because to lose weight and you kind of got to be, that's got to be something you want to do.
Yeah.
The urge for you to lose weight. Do you think that was a premonition to say, hey, you know, maybe that guy upstairs saying, hey, you might want to lose some weight?
Absolutely. I still attribute it this day. I still attribute it. You can call it karma, call it the universe, call it the Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it. Me, myself, as I think that God was sending me a message somehow to saying, just lose a couple of pounds. I think it's in your best interest to lose a couple of pounds. Did it.
And then here you go. You feel great, and you're. So let me say, you're probably on one of your biggest highs because you've been because I know what it's like to be heavy and losing weight and do whatever. And when you're heavy, everything's just bad.
Yeah.
I mean, your home life, your finances are probably a disaster. Never mind sex life or whatever. It's a nightmare.
No, it's true story.
So now you're on this high. You go to your doctor, and he gives you this diagnosis. But let me put my audience in your brain. What was it like?
Well, I'll tell you. You are on this high because I'm feeling great. I had to buy all new suits. I mean, it was great. That's it's a terrible thing to have to go and put out this money, but it's a great feeling to have to go and get to new everything. And I looked great. I looked better. In fact, I didn't look anything like my passport photo, which was really interesting. When I was coming back and looking at it, going, "This isn't you." Yeah. And it's a true story. And then so when you go to say to your doctor, I have a little hip pain, and then you go through a battery of tests for 2 weeks, and at the end of that, after they've done every serious test they can muster, they say, you have cancer, and here I am on this roller coaster now, where I was going up, and now I'm going down a bit. And
that ain't like the Phoenix over. That's a hell of a drop.
Yeah, that's going to right, but that's going to end. And so now you look at this going, wait a minute. But what goes through your head, and when you get things like this, is it what's the future hold? How long is this going to be? You ask a lot of pointed questions. I didn't ask, if I'm honest, I didn't ask a lot of those questions, and I didn't want to research them either. My doctor then he put me in front of an oncologist, a hematologist, because I was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, which is in my bones. They diagnose categorize it as a blood cancer, but it was serious. So I have now an oncologist, hematologist. Sat down with him. The first thing he said to me is, "Johnny, I don't want you to look at anything on the internet. I don't want you to look up any chances. I don't want to look up don't be doing that, because you're not that statistic." And I swore by that.
What do you mean? You're not that statistic?
Because the survival rates and everything that you see out there are based on groups. They're based on group kind of numbers. That's not individual numbers. So I don't put a lot of I don't put a lot of stock in them. I personally don't put a lot of stock in them. I know that they do for certain insurances, things like that, but I don't put a lot of stock in them personally. And my first oncologist trained me that way. He's like, listen, individuals have different successes.
Okay.
It's depending on your treatment, depending on you, depending on how fit you are. And I'll tell you something else, George, it's a mental game. It's a mental game, and you know it.
Yeah.
And you know it. And this was no different. This was a serious mental game where, as I'll mention that, you come home from your treatments. You come home from your treatments, and you look at a blank television screen, and you think to yourself, "You're going to be here to walk your daughter down the aisle. You're going to see your son graduate." Like, these are the kind of things you start thinking to yourself, how much longer can I do this? So they put me through it. They put me through my paces for a bunch of months.
Well, let me go back to that.
Sure.
Let me go back to that.
Sure.
Okay. Because when I went through a situation with myself here at the business, I was going through a business. I got this little small company called the Internal Revenue Service came in and wanted to hit me with a massive lien on me and everything.
Do they do that sort of thing? Are you sure?
Yeah, no, they're nice people though.
Oh, yeah.
You ever talk to them? They're very nice. Yeah, very nice. So they did this, and I mean, that's not a life and death thing. That's not, sure. There's an ending to that. There's things you can negotiate. Cancer is non-negotiable. This is what it is. You could do the treatments or what have you, but that's something where you look, it's always going to be on your, like for me, that little situation, well, not little, it wasn't little, but that situation was on my mind constantly, couldn't sleep, and people can tell you all you want. Don't think about it. You'll get at that little situation there was massive in my world.
Right.
And people that were looking at it from 40,000 feet were like, "Hey, man, you put this here, you put this, you put that." So you're relying on a doctor to tell you these are what we're not going to worry about statistics. But you in your back of your head, and you just said you didn't know if you're going to walk your kid down the aisle. You didn't know if you're going to see your kid graduate. Those are real life issues.
Yes.
But money comes and goes.
Yeah.
But this was a real life issue. How in the world Are you able to even like enjoy? Because I couldn't even enjoy Christmas. I don't enjoy Christmas anyway as it is. But Thanksgiving and all this other stuff, you can't enjoy that or even laugh.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a weird feel. Like, I don't know. How did you get through that alone?
Yeah.
Just alone. That has to be tough.
Yeah. No, I have to say you're right, because I was diagnosed in August of 2015. So I had to go through all that. But I'll tell you one thing. I got through it. I appreciated it much more. Like I went out when I first was diagnosed. I told everybody. I went right to social media. I told everyone what was going on. I kept everybody abreast of my treatments, everything, and the outpouring of support I got was just amazing. Like, and I know wonderful people as yourself. I know wonderful people all over the place. My career has brought me to lots of the kindest, most wonderful people on the planet. And they were all very good to me.
Right.
So I had folks coming out of the woodwork. My friends from Schuylkill County, friends from back home. They were coming Shamokin. They were coming in to take me to my appointments. I'll take you. Give your family a rest. We'll do this and we'll do that. Wonderful. It was a wonderful outpouring of support. So how I got through it was, like the Beatles said, I got by with a little help from my friends, and they would. I had some alone time because I had to be quarantined at some point and that sort of thing. But more and more, it was people picking me up. It was my family, my wife, my mother, my family just picking me up is really what that was about, and reminding me how cherished this life is, and through the whole thing. And so I developed this positive. I mean, I was low. I don't know how much detail, but I contracted Guillain-Barré syndrome at some point.
What is that?
Which essentially it was like neuropathy that spread, and so I lost the feelings in my legs. It was creeping up. And so essentially for me, what happened was
What's that from?
Well, it was from the vaccine, or it was from my flu shot, of all things. It was a crazy thing, crazy reaction. I've gotten dozens of flu shots before this. But once I started this journey, for some reason, the flu shot had a strange reaction with my immune system attacked my nervous system. And it created this, I couldn't walk. I couldn't walk. And so, it was an interesting whole dynamic with that, but it did put things into perspective. I had to walk with sticks for about 2 or 3 months.
Now, when that first started, were you like, uh-oh?
Yep.
Did you? So now you don't know what's going on.
That's right.
You have this diagnosis. What's going through your mind at that point?
Oh yeah, is this it?
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, I didn't want to say that, but I mean, that's
the end.
Yeah.
Is this how it's coming?
Yeah.
Is it coming for me? But luckily, I felt it. I felt it, come up, got to my thighs, and I always joke. And I said, as soon as it got to my thighs, I looked up and I said, listen, if you could just stop it there and maybe pick it up here and go further up, be all right with that. If you could just leave me.
Oh, God. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. When that happens, it's a done deal. It's a wrap.
That's right.
Okay.
Sign on.
Yeah, it's a wrap.
So I got to my thighs, and luckily, there was so many people that got involved. My neighbor, my good friend John Matunis, who will be listening to this at some point, he moved away, but John saved me. My wife called him and said, "I don't think he's well," and told him what was going on, and he said immediately, "Get him here." And so my neighbor and he
get him
to this clinic. We live in Danville, right next to the oncology clinic.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
I'm sorry. We live Napper
Is
Clinic.
he a doctor?
No, he's a PA. John Matunis is a PA. Yeah. And but he's the one. He was my primary caretaker. He was our neighbor. He came over, checked me out, and all that thing. Anyway, they got me right up there, and they admitted me. I couldn't lift my leg to the doc. Doc had his hand right above, couldn't lift it. So he's like, "Yep, you're going over to the big house." And I remember that day it started snowing, and John Matunis wheeled me from the clinic to the big house in the snow. And
let's clarify. That's the hospital, not jail. Not prison.
Well,
we don't want to tell you to.
No, I'm not that kind of banker.
No, yeah. Well, there's been a few in this area. Just thought I'd tell you. Good thing you're down in Danville, not in this area. Okay, but so after that happens, obviously your wife is probably scared.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What was the conversation you had on your? I don't know if you had it on the way to the hospital or the way, because I talked to my wife about when her husband had passed.
Yes.
And it was sudden. Like
Yeah.
she told me a story. He was taking a shower. He had a heart transplant. And from what she had told me, and I don't think I'm speaking out of term, the medications that he was taking to not reject the organ, weakened his bones. And he was a big guy. He was 6'4", 6'5", right on there.
Right.
You know, big guy. And he broke his leg in the shower. So, you know, she's thinking, what the heck just happened? You know, here's a guy had a heart transplant. Here you go. Now you take him to the hospital. You're thinking, what is going on?
Yeah.
Ultimately, that was what expired him. But, you know, you don't know. So your wife at this point, now you're personally like probably scared, probably pretty scared.
Sure.
Did you not know what it was at that time?
No.
Okay,
no,
so
no,
you're probably
no,
scared.
No.
Your wife is probably petrified at this point because she has 2 kids with you here. So did you talk to her at this point?
Yeah, no. Well, no, I didn't do a lot. See, and that's one of the things that I'm a big proponent of now is saying thank you to the caregivers. Is one of the things that I'm telling people to do is when you're going through something like this and you have a minute to breathe, thank the caregivers, because as you may know, one of the things that I did was, you know, when I was first diagnosed, she couldn't really look at me. When I was first diagnosed for about a month.
Yeah, I spoke to her about that.
Yeah, and she couldn't really look at me, you know, because all her family experience with cancer was bad. Without exception, everyone in her family who had cancer passed away.
Well, what kind of cancer did they have?
It was a variety of cancers.
Okay.
It was a variety of cancers, lung cancer, throat cancer. It was a variety of cancers. So, you know, everyone in her family had these cancers that they just passed from. So naturally, when her husband's diagnosed with it, she thinks, you know, well, that's it for him. You know, he's got minutes left in him, you know.
Right.
So she wouldn't really talk to me for about a month or so. Well, I'm sorry. She wouldn't really look at me. And when we talk, obviously, she would be supportive. She was still all that. So finally, I've asked my doctor if he'd have a time to talk to her, and he did. And he blotted out 2 hours of his day in the afternoon, and we had a great conversation. But to get back to your question is, you know, and he placated her, you know, to say, listen, that's not him. We're gonna fix him. We're gonna get this right. We're gonna get this right. And that helped her. That really did help her. That initial conversation with Dr. Gorak really did help. And it helped me as well. You know, and so we went through that, and then there's these setbacks. As you know, this one particular was a huge one because they admitted me for about a week and they didn't know what the issue was until they had a neurologist come in and they did their testing and they said, oh, we think it's Guillain-Barré syndrome, GBS. And so I went through treatments for that. I had to they take your blood out and they scrub it.
Yeah,
and they give it back to you.
Yep.
Which apheresis, I think they call it, or something like that. So that's what they did for me, and then they gave me a month off from everything to harvest my stem cells and do that. But every fever I had, they admitted me. Every time I had a fever of a certain degree.
What year was this?
This was in 2014, 2015.
Okay, so we're still not at the pandemic. So that God, that would have been
nuts,
but good.
Yeah, I've heard horror stories about people who couldn't get.
That's what I'm saying. It's it kind of puts it into perspective.
Yeah.
But at that time, that was just the one thing they were dealing with. The
Guillain-Barré,
the
GBS.
Yes.
Yeah. That was one of the things that were dealt with.
But you still were diagnosed with cancer at this
point.
point.
Yeah, at this point.
Okay, so you're still battling that.
Yep.
But now you're in here, and are you in treatment for cancer at this time?
Yeah. Yes. I'm still seeing. I'm in remission. We beat it into remission in July 10th of 2015 is when I went, and he said, yeah, I've got some great news for you. You're in complete remission. So I've been in remission since. I was on a chemo pill for about 7 years. I was on a chemo drug for about 7 years, took a pill every day, 21 days. I took one pill for 21 days. And then I got off that about 2 years ago. And so now I'm just kind of freeballing it now, you know, where I'm taking some vitamins, some minerals, you know, some supplements and things.
So now you're in remission right now.
Yes.
Okay. And you went through this whole diagnosis. Mm-hmm. You went through the obstacles, the ups, the downs, everything else that was in between this, you know, working and not working, and your wife, you know, she couldn't go to all your appointments, but she had people. You had a big, strong family support.
Yeah.
What was the hardest thing to do? The hardest thing that you went through where you didn't know, and I don't know you to be a quitter. I don't know. Yeah. I know you to be a fighter. My show is most of the time I interview fighters and promoters and also But life is a fight.
Yeah,
Everybody has their own fight.
Yeah.
Whether it's cancer,
Amen.
whether it's marriage, whether it's kids, whether it's whatever. You already have everybody has their own fight.
Yeah.
This fight, what was the hardest part of this fight?
I'll tell you the hardest part for me was coming to grips that there was a possibility that I wouldn't see my kids grow up, or I wasn't going to get a lot of things that, well, as you know, I love to travel. I love to travel. So I go to the UK twice a year. And that is one of my passions. I go for the good beer and the good walks.
UK.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I go all the way to the Yorkshire Dales for that. So we have a great time, but it's one of my passions. And so the hardest thing, and I'll tell you, one of the hardest things for me to do, and I'll tell this for everyone within the sound of my voice, I've said it before, is to write goodbye letters to people. Write goodbye letters, Georgie. Write goodbye letters, and I'm going to tell you the therapeutic value in that. I mean, it's awful. I mean, it's awful and wonderful at the same time. It really is, because you're getting what you need to say down.
Okay, but are you writing goodbye letters to? Okay, so your family is one thing.
Yes.
But people that you're kind of like, I mean, I'm going to be honest. I would have a tough time writing it to my father.
Yeah.
And a tough time writing it to my ex-wife.
Yeah.
It would be tough.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be brutal.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I know you say it's therapeutic.
Yeah.
So who are you writing it to?
So I write to people in my life who I love, who are close to me. Who I wrote the letters to. At the time, my grandparents both my grandmothers were alive. I wrote them letters. They've since passed away. But
did you ever give them those letters?
No, no. See, those letters are for when I was gone.
Oh, okay, okay.
Those letters are for when I was gone.
I see what you're saying.
They were goodbye letters to say. So one thing one of the really good things that has come out of this is that I do tell people how I feel about them more. So now that, it's true. It's true. And it's mostly it's mostly the I love yous, like with my mother,
right.
And my family at home. My kids will tell you, I'm doing a lot more of that than I ever did it. So those are the kind of things that I do more of, but writing those letters was, it took me months to write these letters to just those people, and I expanded it to my best mates and some other things.
I guess then I would take that back. I take that back. If it was something that I was writing I was dying.
Yeah.
I don't have hatred or anything, right. But it would be tough for me to. But if I'm passing away, I guess, or if I would write a letter to, hey, I'm this is what I mean. Yes. My ex, you meant a lot to me. You were the mother of my children. Right. Okay, fine, boom. We'll leave out the bad stuff.
Right.
My dad, I don't really know him. Yeah. So was it, what I mean? Like, I don't really know. So I don't know if I could write.
Right.
What would I tell him?
Right.
Hey,
well,
I didn't see you for 30 years. I mean, like, I don't know what to say.
This was my life.
Yeah, this is my life. I guess that would be it.
This is how I turned out, that kind of thing.
So I guess in a sense that would be a good thing.
Right.
So let me expand on your mother's, I know that you had, and I've seen your shows. Your mother's a very intricate part of your life.
Sure.
I mean, there's only one person in your life, okay, that no matter what happens, I mean, I think O.J. Simpson's mom still loved him.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No matter what you do,
agree,
your mom is going to love you. But also the hardest thing in the world is when you're a man and you're the strong man and you're going to go to your mother at your weakest time.
Yeah.
How was that conversation?
Yeah, I tell you this. I'll tell you this, and I'm going to get emotional on you because that's what this brings about. My mother.
But you should.
My mother was with me when I was diagnosed.
At the hospital?
Yeah. Sadly, Steph couldn't make it. And I didn't think it was anything big. I really didn't. I was going for the biopsy. I thought, I can handle this.
Yep,
it's no problem. Good. So, and I needed somebody because it was anesthesia, So my mom's like, I'll just take you. So I went. I went in and I did it, and he came out. Dr. Bowen, Dr. Tom Bowen, who's absolutely the most brilliant doctor in the planet. He came out and he said, sat next to me. Put his arm on mine. My mom was standing right behind me. She put her arm on, and he said, I got some bad news for you. It's cancer. And I didn't at the time. You go back to that. Like it's because it's, and so my mom, she started crying, and of course I left it out, and she said, I'll never forget what she said. No matter what, we'll get through it. That's what she said to me right here. And Dr. Bowen was wonderful. He was absolutely wonderful. He said, well, all right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to come up with a plan. I want you to be in my office here. We'll do this, this, and this. And brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Right.
His bedside manner was great. Didn't make me feel. I didn't feel like a patient. I felt like I was his relative. Which I was kind of made it worse. Because I was like, oh, we're closer now.
Right.
So anyway, it was. So I didn't really have to tell her because she was there on it. But when I went home and I had to tell my kids and my wife, that was very difficult to do, to tell them that I had it. And we had a group hug in the dining room. It lasted about 10 minutes. Okay,
can I ask you,
sure.
how do you approach that when you walk in?
Yeah.
Here's someone that you were together with. I mean, you were kids when you were together, and I have some of the pictures I'm going to put through here. This is a life-changing, altering whip.
Mm-hmm.
How do you hold it together? Because you're the man. As much as, and I appreciate your vulnerability with me here today. As much as you want to be the man and you're this, I'm a fighter. I'm going to fight my entire life. It's all I've ever done. I can remember being broke, no lights, no food, no water. I got all that. But this is your life with your family and your kids and the woman you love and and everything. How did you approach that to them?
Yeah, because you
want to say it, but what do you do?
These are the things we're supposed to be the providers, as you know. Exactly. This is what we're supposed to do. And at some point, someone just told me that I might not be doing that.
Right.
So when I went home from that to tell them, I broke down in the dining room. I'll not forget it. I just broke down, and they all just circled around me and just hugged me. And that's what I told them. It was cancer. And of course, as I say, we had a nice long hug, and we agreed that we would get through it, and we did. But that's one thing this cancer has given me too. Is this.
Right.
And I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I know. I get it.
I am okay with it.
I get it.
Because as men, as you just pointed out, we're not supposed to be doing it. We're supposed to suck it up and move on.
Right.
We're supposed to be the fighters. We're supposed to be the ones in there. And it's very difficult to do. When in the back of your mind, you think, well, this guy just told you, you might not be here to do a lot of that. So it's very difficult to do, but it's that it's the drive. That's not me. That is not me. I'm not going to be that guy. I am going to move this. I'm going to move this needle, and we're going to do this right. And no matter what this takes, I will give whatever it is that I have to fight this fight. And you get encouraged by the people around you when they're only speaking in positives. Like I only had really one of my friends call and say, Johnny, it's not so good. I've looked up on the internet and it's not so good. I mean, he was being honest with me,
Right. But that's when the old addition by subtraction might come into play at that point.
Yeah. Well, delete.
Yeah.
But with that, but everyone was very positive, which really did affect me, because you can easily spot. I've seen it since my diagnosis. I've shared my experiences personally on one-on-one level with other survivors about 24 times, and I've had varied successes with that. But I can tell you that there are survivors out there that just feel so alone that they don't have it. So they go down fast. Even the men, even the men, I this one fella, I'll not forget. He was so concerned. He had to put his mother in a nursing home, and he didn't want to tell her that he had cancer. He had bladder cancer. I said, do you want me to go with you? So we'll tell her. She said, anyway, turns out his mother did whatever he could for him. And he said, he called me a few weeks later, and he said, my mom was great with it. Because I encourage people to talk to people about it, because you don't know what support you're missing out on.
Right.
You don't know how your fight is going to go until you see who's in your corner. to see who's going to be doing this with you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I was grateful enough to have tons of people.
Right.
And so, but to get back to that is you had to swallow a bit of masculinity.
Right.
Because I knew for a year of my life I needed help. And I had to be the one to say, yeah, okay, I need this help. I need you to do this. I need this. I need that.
And it's funny you said that because I listened to Les Brown. Les Brown is probably one of the greatest motivational speakers to ever live. And he said, sometimes it's like you're on the side of the road with a flat tire and people are driving past and say, hey, you need a lift. And you always said, no, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. There's going to be a time where you're going to need a change of a tire, a jump start of your car.
Yeah.
Ask for that help. It doesn't mean that you're any less of a man at this point. Believe me, there are a lot of low points in my life there. You know, the last 10 years have been a nightmare. I mean, you know, and I didn't have, because, you know, here you are, you're Georgie Bagels. You're, you know, you've got to be, you know, making money hand over fist.
Yeah.
Why the hell's the IRS knocking at your door? Why the hell is your marriage falling apart?
Yeah. Right.
You just couldn't take a break and say, you know what? I can be vulnerable for a little bit. Yeah. Regain my stuff and get that swag back. You know, I lost that swag for a long time. Yeah. You know, and I might have been a jerk too, to be quite honest. It kind of humbled me a little bit. Yeah. So, you know, it humbles you as the person you are. Yeah. So that in itself is just something that I look at to you and say, man, going through this stuff, you do have to be vulnerable. You know that. Absolutely. And do you feel that it's been better for you now? Oh, absolutely beneficial to me because I'll tell you this. I grew up in Shamokin, as I've said, and my grandfather was a coal miner. Both my grandfathers were coal miners. My grandfather was a pretty, you know, he was a man's man. He didn't mess about, you know, with things, you know, and he told you how he felt, and he was a bit of grumpy old sod, but he was all right. But to me, he was great. Right. He was the best grandfather I could have asked for. You know, until that guy died, I kissed him on the cheek every time I saw him and every time I left him. You know, and he'd even say to me, "Where are you going?" And he'd point to his cheek. Oh, it's funny you said it because I do it to my kids. Yeah, I don't think in our lives, I don't think we ever, or either of our parents, I mean, my mother or what have you, ever said I love you. I'd say I love you to my kids. Yeah. And now my oldest is kind of like, hey, dude, you know. Cramping my style. Come on, you know, there's a girl looking at it. You know what I'm saying? So he's a little bit like now, but my little guy still to this day, I love you, Dad. I love you. It don't matter who's there. Yeah. When he gets older, he's gonna stop that nonsense because just what it is. Yeah. But before we got off the phone, I only started that. Well, I did that always with my kids, but I only started that when my second marriage. I saw how my wife was with our kids. Yeah. And it's okay. But I mean, I never thought that way. I never did my entire life. And that's how it changes you. It does. And it really changes you. You get like, that's important. And it's important for this kid or for whoever it is to know that I love them. It's important for that. It's important for them to know that. And, you know, because tomorrow's not promised, as you already know. So if that's the last thing I say to them. Yeah. And I mean, I never want to think that, but you never know. You know, I had a good friend. Probably the only reason why I'm doing this is for a good friend of mine, Eddie Walker. Edsel he did all the broadcasting for the Berwick Bulldogs and stuff. And I can remember he went to the football playoff game and I was supposed to go and I couldn't go. I was like, I can't go. I got my kids this weekend. It was Berwick was playing somewhere else in the playoffs. It was up north somewhere. And John McDaniel, Joe McAfee, and Carl Majors were going to go. Majors dropped out. But it was only them two going. 9 o'clock. Oh, it was 11 o'clock at night. And I get up at 3 o'clock. Yeah. I'm like, who the hell's at my front door? I walk out. It's Joe Mack. Yeah. Eddie's dead. Dropped dead at the football game. Joe. Like what? Yeah. He was at the bagel shop. It was Friday night. He was just there this morning. We're talking about going. No, he died right there. Nothing you can do. Right. So, you know, you talk about vulnerable at that time. You know, there's a guy that, you know, one of the first guys I met when I came here, he was one of my coaches in the boxing gym. So I understand that. Yeah. And how it changes you. Yeah. And so let's get back to now your family life now. Right. Right. What's it like now that you're, you know, I'm going to call you a cancer survivor. Sure. I think that's where we're at now. Yeah, absolutely. What changes now in your life are you doing now that, you know, you maybe not wouldn't have done if you didn't have this experience, this journey? What are you doing now? Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm doing a lot of things. I'm closer to my family than I have been before. Was that always something? And I know we spoke before this as to what I went through. And I'm not saying that I wasn't okay, so let me retract that there. I'm not going to say I wasn't the best husband. I think I was a good husband. but I wasn't around enough.
Right.
Okay. So let's,
Right.
I think that was it. But I was very good to my ex. I was very good, and I'm still good to my children now. But I always said, I could have probably done that a little bit better.
Right.
You know what I mean? Was there something now that is this like where you're going?
Yeah.
Now?
No, it's true. Like those kinds of things, like telling my kids that I love them, telling them that I'm very proud of what they've done. And I am very proud of what they've done. Even, you know, my wife, I'm proud of what she's done. She's an excellent teacher, the best teacher. And so like those kinds of things, telling my mother all the time, we didn't do that before. We just knew it. We just assumed that we knew it. But I tell them, you know, tell my aunt, I tell, you know, all the folks that are in my life that I love them, you know, and that is a big change, you know, because, you know, you didn't,
your guy. You don't do that. I know, especially in our culture.
Yeah.
Being Hispanic, I mean, like the moms and the aunts, and they're very much like that, and even the Italian side. But Hispanic, we just don't. All right, we don't hold off on that. You know, we're macho. We fight it out. Barbecues, we're fighting with boxing gloves and whatever. You know what I mean? Seeing who stole the most hubcaps. We're doing crap like that. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like that.
Yeah.
So that's a change, and that's got to be. I mean, how awkward was it at first?
Yeah, it was a bit strange for me at first, you know, I you know, but their response is always the same, you know, so they come back to me with saying the same. I love you, Dad. I love you.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll even say this, and when my mother listens to this, she's going to be a bit embarrassed, I'm sure, but my mother sends me these really nice texts now, about how proud she is of me and all this stuff. Not that she didn't do that before, but it wasn't a lot. You know, but we've become more close. And so like it has changed other people as well, you know.
For the better.
Yeah, no, absolutely for the better. And I'm thrilled for it. I'm thrilled. I'm sad that it had to be this that does it, you know, but it helped.
Do you think about how many of the years have gone by that, you know, you just assumed that's what it was and didn't know that how much, I guess, they could outpour that love to you.
No, it's true. And that's one less thing you have to worry about, you know, because we're all worried about, you know, at the end of the day, it's just, you know, what is this person going to think of me? How are they going to remember me? Those kinds of things. But if they remember me as a good loving guy, I'm okay. I'm all right with that.
Was that important to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Did you not, now just because this happened, did you change I want these guys, did you go that extra mile, say, I want you to understand this.
Yeah.
I want you to know that I did this for you guys too.
Yeah. Like I think because I do think mental wellness for everyone in these situations should be a priority. So, you know, when I look back, you know, maybe I should have talked to my kids more while I was going through it. Maybe I should have talked to people more, you know, as I use I use Steph as an example, but I use my mother as an example as well. You know, she was thinking, I'm sure she was thinking she was going to lose one of her sons. You know,
there's no playbook for that either.
Right. And so how do we approach that? You know, so what my mother did is she worked hard to make it seem like everything was normal, you know, so she would be the one to come over because my wife had to work and excuse me, and her employer was very good with us. So, you know, she got to take whatever she needed, but excuse me, being a teacher, it's difficult. So, and she loves what she does. So my mother would come over, get me out, you know, put these jogging pants on. We're going to go to Rick Marr. We're going to go here. We're going to, you know, you're going to get soup, you know, and I'd shuffle along. Okay, Mom. Okay,
typical
Mom.
Typical mom. Yeah.
This is where we're going.
Yeah.
We're going to go to the drugstore, get your stuff, and we're going to go to for lunch. Okay. So, but it was great. Those looking back, that's the magic that worked for me, you know, where I had somebody come and say, put these clothes on, you know, because we're going to go out. You know, you're not going to sit here feeling sorry for yourself, buddy. Let's go out. You go.
And that was your mom.
That was my mom. Yeah.
Was it almost like reminiscent of when you were a kid?
Yeah, almost like, yeah. Well,
no,
yeah.
I'm saying like you still, and again, I go back to it where it's like your mom is just that one person, and it's every mom. I mean, obviously there's the rare exception that there's issues there, but your mom is just that person that no matter what happens in this world, no matter how hard things get, no matter how difficult, whether it be in your marriage or in your life, in your job, with your kids, she will always be there to say, I got you, John.
Yeah, no, it's true.
And that is relevant in everybody's life. But then to go back where she's taking care, here you are 40 some years old at the time, and she's taking care of you.
Yeah.
You know, it makes it it makes it that much easier that, God forbid, something had happened to your mother that you're going to take care of your mom. It's almost like a full circle.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I was grateful for it. I that's what my overwhelming sense of gratitude for everything that happened to me really did. I mean, you spend your life, hey, thanks, George. Thanks for this. Thanks for this. Cause you used to send me bagels and all this stuff up to the bank and all. You used to do, hey, thanks. We appreciate that. Just, and it's great. But my gratitude now is just overflowing. Like I'm overboard with it almost, where I just need people to know that I am so thankful that everyone does whatever it is now, even now for me. I had friends that took me to England this last time. They took me. That was great.
Right.
I can't thank them enough. So those kinds of things, I've changed my gratitude level for sure. You're always grateful, but
right.
But we don't always say it.
And now that's has changed.
It has changed.
So as we're saying that, I wanted to do a couple things. I wanted to do a few things. Number one, I wanted, you always do these letters and these buy letters and what have you, but we're not doing buy letters per se. Nope. I want to know, and I want them to know the impact you've had on their lives or that they've had on your lives, your life here, just in general, whether it be the people that I mentioned in your life, how important they were. I want you to give me a little bit of feedback from what they always say, so that they can understand, because sometimes, I mean, I always say it, sometimes you just can't get it because you're just there with them, and like it's almost like you want to say something, but you don't feel that way. So I'm going to give you a couple people, and I want you to really just think back as to what your journey started to where it is now, and then give me a little bit about them. So I'm going to start first with your son, Gavin.
Right.
What give me an idea as what he's meant to you. Obviously, he's your son. I mean, of course, they mean a lot to you. But during this journey, like what you've learned from him, how he's grown, and from where it was to where now. And I don't know if he knew the full impact when he was first diagnosed.
Yeah, no, he would have been 11.
Okay, so he does. 11, so he knows the impact.
So he does, yeah.
What was his journey like with you?
Yeah, he of all the folks, he I think spent the least time. He spent the least amount of time with me, I think, and I think he relied more on his sister and his mother to get me through. And actually, I'll say this: my son was a rock. Like at no point did I see sad eyes from him, which was really, really an encouragement to me. But when I told you I quarantined, I fixed up the downstairs. We put a bathroom in, and then I slept in the family room, moved the bed down there. And so we had the whole family room set up. It was an apartment. It was an apartment.
All right.
And so I had a single bed set over there, to myself. I had pictures of it. I had a single bed set over there. And my son would sleep downstairs with me. He would sleep on the couch just to watch me, just to make sure I was okay. And that was huge. I mean, I know he probably didn't think a lot of it. He was 11 or 12 or whatever he was, but he maybe didn't think a lot of it, but he stayed with me. And really, I should, when you're on quarantine, you really should pick one person that you interact with, one or two people that you should interact with, not a lot of people, especially since he was still in school.
Right.
I'm not supposed to get sick in any way. But I didn't, like at that point, you're like, screw this, right. That's my boy.
Yeah.
That's my boy, And so I look back at that, and he, of all the folks, of all the people around me, he was, he seemed to be less affected by it, but I think he may have been more affected by it, than I'm giving him credit.
That's the
for.
man thing, I think.
Yes, I agree with you. And because, even I was brought up that way, and even though I kiss him on his head every night, tell him I love him, and, and say goodnight to him every night that he's in the house, that's our ritual. He comes and finds me, puts his head down, and even though, we still do that, there is that element there that guys don't really do that. Guys don't really do that. And, but I have to say he was probably one of my best rocks to go to while I was there, because he seemed like he was unaffected by things, and he made it normal for me.
Yeah, and when you have another male in the house. That's always important. Believe me, I know.
Yeah.
Having a man in the house, it's always good to have that extra voice. What about your daughter Maya? Now it would be a little more difficult because I do know someone right now who's going through a devastating time right now, and it affects the daughter a lot.
Yeah.
How did it affect her on this journey now going through when it first started till now? How was that?
Yeah, I think it affected her a lot. I think it affected her a lot, and she's remarkable. My daughter and I have a very special relationship, and she is just a wonderful person. She's turned out to be. Before I was diagnosed, she was going to be a clinical psychologist type thing. That's what she was looking at. She watched a lot of CSI. She watched a lot of CSI. Well, they're doing that anyway. Do you know what I mean? They're all doing that anyway.
Yeah.
But she watched a lot of CSI, all that stuff, But after my diagnosis, she said, I'm changing. I'm going to be a dietitian. So she is a registered dietitian. So she has changed her career. And I won't say it's simply because of that, but I do think that had an effect to it.
And it should have, because I mean, there's God knows this, our diets are just god awful.
Yeah. Oh well, amen. Amen. And when I was going through it, my wife wanted me to eat healthier, and the doctor's like, no, he can eat what he wants.
Now, were you changing your diet prior to the diagnosis? Because you said you were losing weight.
Yeah. I was on a pretty good diet. But when I went to the doctor's like, listen, if he wants to eat a gallon of ice cream for dinner, give it to him. The guy's going to be in the fight of his life. Let him have whatever he wants to have. That's the message that came across, and so my daughter, kind of picked up on that. Now she wants to help people live better and have better chances of surviving things like this,
right?
By getting them in shape and getting them eating healthier. So when it does come to the fight, they have a better chance, And so I think that's that's the biggest change I saw in her is that, and she is genuinely concerned. She really wants to know when I'm going to the doctor, what the doctor said, all that stuff. Now, even throughout the last 9 years I've been doing it, she wanted to know all of it. Tell me what the doctor said, and now she is a pediatric registered dietitian for Geisinger. She still does that to me. Still does that to me. I want to know. So she's been great. She's been absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, that's. Yeah. I mean, to have the relationship with your daughter is always good, and so most of the time when they go through that stuff, though, it's a little rough for them to see dad like that. The strong mantelpiece that you got to put on that act.
Yeah.
When you're thinking, oh man, I hope they don't see me this vulnerable, and then they see you during the day. But so I'm going to give you a couple minutes to think about this one here, because I know what your mother meant to you here in this fight. We've said it a few times. Your mother, and just what I've read about her and what I've looked at in some of your shows with, to have someone like that and the rock that she's been for you, I don't know if you could ask for anyone to be more solid in your corner. And I say it in the boxing terms, in your corner of a fight. But to have someone like that, what was the impact she had during she was there from day one. To where you're at now, where you're in remission, and you're spreading the word of how important it is to talk about this stuff. What was your mom's impact at this point? And take as much time as you need there.
Yeah, no, I have no problem. It's very easy for me to tell me that tell everyone that my mother gives me a sense of fearlessness, and there's if she's with me, there's very few things that I wouldn't tackle, because I know that everything's going to be okay. And that's really been throughout my life, really. But it's been more evident, from the day I was diagnosed, when she said, no matter what, we're going to get through this. And she's always spoken in we's. She's never said, you're going here, you're going to do this, we're doing this, we're doing that. We're going to go to the doctor now. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. She's done that. She's given me, she has instilled in me the strength that I never knew I had until this fight. Because as I've said, when I'm in her company, I change. I'm ready. I can do almost anything. And I think I can get that done. With her. She's been a remarkable influence on me, and she's given me the kindness factor, the generosity that I have. She's a doer. My mother's a doer, and I'll tell this quick story about my mother. She's so much a doer. She came over to my house. It was in April, a few years back, and I was painting my chimney, and it was taking too long. And my mother is not that. She's not that patient. If she sees something, I can do this. I can help you. I'm going to do it. So she came up on the roof to help me.
Geez.
So she came up on the roof to help me, and she said, you do the red, I'll do the white.
Oh, jeez.
Right. So we're painting the thing, and I put the ladder on the decking, not realizing, and I thought it was solidly into the decking because it had the spikes on the bottom.
Right.
So I thought it was solidly in the decking. Anyway, she comes down the ladder, she falls.
Holy cow.
Hits the grill. My mother hits the grill and then hits the deck. Boom, boom.
Dude.
And I'm stuck on the roof. Georgie, I'm telling you. It was one of the worst days of my life.
I
right?
could imagine.
And so what I did was I had an A-frame ladder there, but it was way over there. I couldn't get to it. And if I jumped, I knew what was going to happen. If
Wouldn't
I jumped,
be good.
it wouldn't be good. So I'm screaming. My son is very young at this point. So he comes out and he's running around the ladder like a chicken with his head cut off. He doesn't know what to do, right? Because he can't move the ladder. It's not strong enough to move the A-frame.
Man.
And he's not strong enough to move the extension ladder.
Here's a question. What was your mom doing at this point?
She's reeling, going,
okay.
on the deck. She's on the deck screaming. Anyway, it's absolutely hilarious. So it's not hilarious.
Geez.
So my neighbor comes out. I'll not forget. She comes out because she hears me screaming, and moves the A-frame over so I can get down. So I got down, and doesn't the fire chief come around the corner? The fire chief heard me yelling from three streets away.
Oh my God!
Turned up, called the ambulance on the way. So
cool.
Next thing I know, I get down, get to my mom, put a blanket on her. The ambulance is there. And a funny story, I called my dad. My dad used to drive like, it was a bit driving with Daisy stuff. I mean, he was just like, it's doing 25 mile an hour. And he'd be looking at what's going on and he'd be talking. This time I called him. I said, Mom fell. She's going to be. He beat us. And I live a mile from the Geisinger. A mile from the Geisinger. He beat us there and he lived in Lewisburg. He beat us there. Anyway, my mother, that's how much of a doer she is. She had to get involved. She doesn't do ladders much anymore.
I wouldn't. Don't blame her.
She doesn't do ladders much anymore. But that's the kind of stuff that she does. She's like, I'll come up and help you. You're taking too long.
I'll tell you, you got some hell of good neighbors.
Oh, I'm telling you what.
Between picking you up to take you to the hospital to your mom rolling on the deck.
I'm telling you, they're good people. They're all good people.
They are. Oh, I guess they are over there in Danville because they happened over here.
They let you go.
Let me go. They would let me go. Well, finally, John, I want to go tell you another story here. Through this whole journey, there's certain things about your marriage and love, and we talk about the love of your mom and all of that, and that's a given.
Right.
That is a given.
Sure.
But to have actual love from somebody, to have legitimate someone who loves you, that didn't give birth to you, that didn't raise you as a child, but for someone to have love for you is an incredible gift to have. In my first marriage, I never knew that.
Right.
I didn't know what love was. We thought we did. And we had love for each other when we had children. We had love for each other when the bills were paid, when everything was going good and the sun was shining and we were on vacation. But true love, I feel, is when you go through trying times financially. IRS knocks on your door. That's a stress. I could tell you, the sheriff was at our home, looking to sell our stuff.
Right.
There's times that's when you find out what true love is. And like you said with your mother, my mom was there at the time when that was going on.
Yeah.
My mom was like, we'll take care of it. Like your mother said, we'll take care of it.
We'll get through it.
Unfortunately, and it's not a knock on her, my ex couldn't bear that. She just couldn't. So that's how I knew that vision was, that's not true love. It's not true love. What I can tell you, what is true love, is your wife. And I say that because I asked her a few times. I said, I want to do something different in this episode because this is something that means a lot to me personally. Fighting is, I do boxing and fighting here on the show, but this is a fight of life. And I asked her a few times, I said, about your relationship with her and your marriage and what have you. And she wrote a letter to me. And she wrote this letter, and I want to read it to you to get your reaction. It is profound love, is what I see in this letter. And I'm going to read it to you if you don't mind.
No, go right ahead.
Okay. So, John,
we have been together for 33 years and married 30 years. And we know it has had its ups and downs. The day we found out about your cancer was the worst day of my life as your friend, wife, and mother of our 2 children. I know you shared the story about me having trouble even looking at you the first month without bursting into tears, but you have no idea how proud and scared I was at the same time. You had that positive attitude from day one to not let cancer win. You would still try to keep smiles on my face, our kids' faces, and anyone you were around. You were determined to be there as a husband to me and a great father to our 2 children when you were dealing with so much on your plate. I tried to go to as many appointments as my work schedule would allow during the stages of our journey, and you would always tell me not to worry about you, that you are okay going to treatments or appointments by yourself. In the beginning of treatment, you could go on your own, but I was so grateful for your mom and others who would step in to be with you whenever needed. I was always impressed and astonished of how you would crack jokes and try to make the nurses and other patients laugh during such a dark time for others going through the same pain and struggle as you. Often I would be upset with you because you had such a positive attitude, but I felt you had to do it for me and others in your life so we would not worry so much. You needed that energy for you to fight, but you were worried about others. My mind always kept thinking about losing you and how would I continue life without you by my side as a friend, husband, and father to Maya and Gavin. You always were more concerned about me and the kids coping with your cancer than you were about yourself and your health. I remember asking Sister Donna Marie to ask all of the sisters to pray for you because we needed as much grace from God as possible. I never told you this, but I had a dream about the sisters praying in the basilica for you, and I was watching and listening from the back. When they finished, I felt such peace and hope, as if I was assured all would be okay. The next day at school, Sister told me they had a special prayer service for you that evening. I had no idea that was happening. Your determination, faith, and love for your family and friends during our ongoing journey makes me feel so blessed to call you my husband, father of our children, and my soulmate. I love you, JLS.
Now, that to me shows an unwavering love that nobody could ask for. Nobody. There are times where you'll probably say, people say, you hit that unlucky lottery that got cancer.
Mm-hmm.
You hit that unlucky lottery. I can tell you by just this conversation I had with your wife, you are one lucky dude.
Yeah. Oh, no, I agree with you. She puts up with a lot.
Believe me, I dealt with you as a banker.
Yeah.
I know how that goes. I know how that goes, John.
That's right.
But ultimately, John, people that are going through it now and people that are going through those dark times that you went through, and right now there's a lot of advances coming on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
There, 20 years ago, multiple myeloma.
Yeah.
Myeloma.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of a death sentence.
Yep, I agree with you. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of advancement that's come on. What do you tell those patients that are going through it right now, that are going through the dark times and the uncertainty at this point, whether it's multiple myeloma or lung cancer or breast cancer. What do you tell them that are going through that?
Well, listen, there's always hope. I have a friend of mine who passed, and we had a great conversation. I got to talk to her a week before she passed, and of course we didn't know it was the week before, but we had a real good heart to heart. And she said to me, John, there's always hope. No matter what, I know I'm not going to be here long, but there's always hope, and you have to tell people that. And so that's what I want to do with the survivor's journey. We want to expand our circle of hope to everyone. Everyone's affected by cancer, because everyone is affected by cancer.
Correct.
And so that's what we want to do. We want to have everyone come to the table and say, I know what you're going through. We know what you're going through. We're here to help. And we want to talk about things. I know that it's tough to talk about men's health. You know, I was just said today, men don't talk about plumbing issues. You know what I mean? And especially when you go through chemo and you have all this stuff and it's not working, you're less. And not only, you get kicked again because you have cancer. Now you're kicked again because nothing's working on you, And so those kinds of things we want to talk about. And because lots of people aren't talking about them. And so if you listen to a conversation about it, you're not alone.
Right.
Other people are talking about it. My grandfather, God rest his soul, never talked about any of that stuff to anyone, not even his doctor. And ultimately, the cancer spread, for him. And I felt he should have talked about it. And so now I go into the dentist and I'm telling him about all my other problems. Can you look down here? Can you check under the hood? The dentist is like, no.
So, I mean, let me ask you something that's a little bit, it's not, and this is always, I want this to always be positive, but a little bit on the negative to touch back a little bit, because I know someone's going through some issue. Are we doing enough in the medical industry? Because I know of a facility out in Arizona that is doing some remarkable stuff. The problem is it's $500,000.
Yep.
Are we doing enough don't even get political. I don't want to get political about the money we send overseas, because it's just incredible. But the people here that are suffering, are we doing enough to help them? And I get it. The cost is incredible. But the people who, the insurance is not covering. I know we just had an incident just recently. The CEO of United Health was assassinated, and some say it's because of them not covering stuff.
Rates, yep.
Are we doing enough as Americans to take care of the people who need the help, whether it's through insurance or through medical advancements, to take care of a majority of people? Obviously, I know there's some people you can't help. It's too far gone or what have you. But if you're young enough, like you had 2 kids and you had a wife, and you're lucky that you had the insurance to cover the stuff, and there was still, I'm sure there's still medical bills. But the number one cause of bankruptcy in America is medical. Are we doing enough?
No. And that's the easy answer. The easy answer is no, we're not doing enough. We can be doing much more. And costs are out of control. And I'm not sure. I mean, I simply don't have the answer to that, but I know that it's out there somewhere. I know letting corporations do these unbridled things that they're doing, with the vaccines and things like that we've seen. We've spent billions on those type of things. But if it's working, the adage that's going, you see it all the time. If they have Narcan posts, things all over the place, where's the chemo post? There's far more people that are going through this,
and not at a fault of their own.
You know what I'm saying? No, I agree with you.
If they're doing a Narcan and they have the post, there has to be a little accountability there for that, as opposed to cancer, where this could be genetic, this could be you inhale a Roundup and stuff like that.
Right.
I mean, there's stuff that happens that you have no control of. I can't help it if my genetic makeup is you're going to get this, and because of the sugars in your food, it's exacerbated the cancers.
Yep.
So expand on that point a little bit.
So that's to me. I mean, if we're doing that, I mean, I'm not a proponent of socialized medicine. From what I can see, it doesn't work. But there has to be some sort of medium in there, because I can tell you, I myself had to do some fundraisers, for when I went through it, because the costs were through the roof. One prescription was $1,700 and it wasn't covered. I had to file appeals. It took me 3 months to get these things covered. These kinds of things can't go on for survivors. They can't go on for people who are sick. They can't do it. We have to fix this.
Because then you're not working.
That's right. That's right. And I'm getting a percentage of my income, whatever that is. You're not, and you're not in the right frame of mind to begin with.
Mm-hmm. So look at this stat. Look at this stat. I'm gonna throw this out there before I go back to you. The number one cause of bankruptcy in America is medical, right?
Mm-hmm.
The number one cause of divorce in America is financial problems.
Mm-hmm.
You have two compounding things in a household.
Yeah.
And again, we'll go back to the socialized medical. I think everyone should be covered.
Mm-hmm.
I do. I believe it. I'm a Republican. I'm a capitalist. I have a business. But I do think there should be some sort of coverage for these people. These things are so out of control. You're one of the lucky ones.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens to the family who doesn't have this stuff and just like, I'm out?
Yeah. You know exactly what's happening to them, Georgie. They can't do it.
Yeah.
So they say, I'm going to leave that on the table because I can't afford to do this. Now, there are organizations out there. I will say this. There are organizations that do grants. The Lymphoma and Leukemia Society, the American Cancer Society, they do certain grants. They help survivors with transportation, things like that. So they do help. There are helps out there, and there is help. But some of the, and I will say, some of the pharmaceutical manufacturers. I know in my case, I'll tell you this. In my case, Celgene was the manufacturer of the chemo drug that I had, and it was $600 a pill.
Good Lord!
But I called them and I said, "There's no way." So ultimately, I paid a significantly reduced rate. I paid like $100 a month.
It's still just, to me, just seems weird.
No, but doesn't it though? So how are we doing all this? So I do think. I do think, and I'm not sure leaving it to the politicians is the right thing to do. I'm just not sure, because clearly they can't
handle their own money. Anytime the government says, "Hey, I'm here to help," run.
Yeah, right. I mean, they can screw up everything.
Yeah, look at the Postal Service and UPS are the same thing.
I was just going to say.
One makes $1 billion profit, the other one's broke. Yeah. I mean, it's just, do you, from what you've seen in your battle and your journey, what can be corrected that you think? And I mean, we're not going to solve it here in a 45-minute podcast, but what do you think can help what kind of advice can you give these people that are surviving and trying to get by?
Yeah.
That could say, "Hey, go here or go here." What can you help with?
Yeah, we're going to, this is one of the topics we're going to address coming up in 2025 on the survivor's journey, is specifically talking about insurances and how to manage this process for people all across the gamut. But in terms of helping people now, I'm not sure what we can do, but certainly it's going to take a community to do this for us, and I think it's going to take everyone involved, where we're going to have to say, and like Obamacare, I mean, everyone knocks that. Everyone knocks that. I get it. I get some of the bad things that happen, but he took off the limits. Without those limits, I can tell you, it would have cost me a lot more money. He took off the pre-existing conditions.
Uh-huh.
Without that, I can tell you, I couldn't switch jobs because I have a pre-existing condition.
Uh-huh.
So things like that, it's a step in the right direction. And I'm not a radical liberal. I'm with you on these, but this kind of thing, we can't do it anymore.
Uh-huh.
Because I've seen it. I've talked to people in the UK, and they have socialized medicine.
Uh-huh.
When they have to wait 6 months to get a hip that they desperately need, and there's countless times where this is a problem. The elderly they just delay it, because they might not make it to their next appointment. So we just keep delaying it. That's what kind of socialized medicine. There's got to be an amalgam in here. There's got to be something in here that we can do. And the costs are rising for normal Americans. It's not good. It's just not good. And taking the politics all out of it. It is just the cost of healthcare is rising too much, and somebody somewhere needs to do something about it. And we're focused somewhere else, and we really should be looking at normal Americans and how they can afford treatments to whatever ails them now.
Right.
And because there's serious issues. And I'm not just talking cancer, across the board.
Right.
Across the board. It costs everyone a lot of money every time they go to the doctor. And I don't think we need to do that anymore, because that's a terrible worry. And one thing we don't talk about, and we will talk about it at the Survivor's Journey, is divorce rates during survivorship journeys. They skyrocket.
Yeah, they do. Mm-hmm. I know. And it's, and I always say it, it's the financial burden and the fact that the spouse feels alone.
Mm-hmm.
The spouse will feel, like you said about how men, they don't feel more of a man, all of a sudden their plumbing don't work and stuff like this. That affects a marriage.
Yes.
And especially when you're young.
Yes.
Hey, you got to go somewhere else. That's what's going to happen. Yeah. It's just part of the deal.
Yeah.
So I always hate to see when these people are struggling, because that's that extra burden. The finances is an extra burden on something. And I've always said, man, if they could just fix this out a little bit, it'd be a lot better for the people who are going through it. And make it easier. Don't make it harder.
Right.
And I mean, I think you're doing a great thing by getting the Survivor's Journey podcast going. You have this stuff. It's Cancer Conversations. I saw in there, and it's something that anybody can learn. Where can they get to that? Is it just on YouTube, or is it on all?
Yeah, we're on YouTube. Cancer Conversations is on YouTube. We're also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can get us direct there, or I think the links are on our website, which is thesurvivorsjourney.org.
Well, I could say, John, this has been, when we first started, I was like, man, this is going to be a conversation. It's going to go, banker and this, but then I found out you're not a banker anymore. So that was a check in my book. I said, oh, that's great. No more banking with John.
Took that strike away.
Yeah, and then you got one back, and then it's just back and forth. But ultimately, John, when I saw your story, Susan Schwartz did a great job in the Press Enterprise.
Oh,
she wrote a great story, and I looked at it. It was 3:05 in the morning. I'm here at about 2:45 every morning, and I said, "Is that John?"
Yeah.
Sure enough, there he was. I said,
at 5:35, I got your text.
I said, this can't be John the banker. He's now a podcast. I thought it was the only podcast in the area. I was talking about combat sports, but man, stuff like this is something I do a lot, and I would love to have you back. Have my audience watch your journey as you're going through. Give people who are going through this themselves an opportunity to reach out to you. And where can they reach out to you?
Absolutely. You can go on the survivorsjourney.org. You can get me there. I think my phone number is listed there. All of our contact information is there. Email is advocate@survivorsjourney.org, at thesurvivorsjourney.org. All smalls. But I hope to build a model for this so that we can move this to other places. This is something that needs. I have friends in Colorado. I have friends in Florida that said these conversations need to happen more, because there's nothing now after COVID. We've lost we've lost a great deal of our group therapies. We've lost a great deal of things that the survivor has had access to. It's been crazy. It's just been crazy. And so that's what I want to do. I want to get to the larger audience to say, we'll have that conversation. Come on. We're going to tell survivor stories, from our podcasts for 2025. We're going to try to do survivor stories. We're still looking for sponsors for those coming up. We do one a month, and we do them from Danville. We're looking for, we're going to tell survivor stories. I got a couple lined up already. We're trying to finish out 2025 strong. We're going to be doing newsletter. I'm going to do educational. I'm going to be doing a bit of lecturing. We're going to sponsor, hopefully, for 2025. We're going to look at a 5K and a panel event where we're going to try to get, doctors and insurance people and things like that.
Oh, geez.
All on a panel. And then we're going to have survivors come and talk to them.
Oh, you could put that on pay-per-view, because that'll sell. I can tell you that right now.
Going to build a ring.
I'll do the broadcasting. Believe me, I'll do the broadcasting for that one. Holy cow, would that be something else? But ultimately, I think the conversations do need to happen. We're going to keep those lines of communication open, because it is so important to speak about things like that. I mean, I know just for myself going through my mental health issues, just speaking about it helped me out a lot greatly. Yeah. I couldn't imagine if it was going through something where it was life or death, and possibly not seeing your children or your family again. And you did that. You survived, buddy.
Yeah.
So ultimately, you won the fight.
Oh, that's what I like to hear.
You did. And again, we'll end this as I always end this, guys. Don't be envious of what I've accomplished in my life. Be inspired by what you can do with yours. John Yoder, it's always good to have you on. And by the way,
Georgie.
All you banks out there, sponsor his show.
What?
You guys got the money. He was a banker.
Yeah, that's right.
John, always
Thanks,
good to have you, buddy.
Thanks, brother.
All right.
Thanks for watching the Zapata Brand Podcast. Please subscribe to the podcast and listen where all podcasts are available.